So I'm going to be showing you how to do pin backs first. So here's 2 samples. I'll pass that around and I'm going to grab some wire.
Where was that years ago?
I don't know. I brought it in. It was in a chasing kit. Chasing and replicate tools. Some other samples of rivets. Tube rivets are my favorite because you can see through them. And this one's a wire rivet. And then here's a brass nail rivet. So I'll show you those ones.
Was this little flower stamped, or how did you do that?
That was something I found in the junk bin. I imagine
Rolled
someone roll printed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's it. It's your limit is your only imagination, right?
Yeah.
Your only limit, I guess.
So I'll do the pin back first. So I'm going to use this piece here as my pin. Just going to have that flat. So this is for demo purposes. You would have had your edges done and whatnot, your texture done, or if you had other pieces soldered to it or whatever. And for this one, I'm going to take some 18 gauge wire. And for yours, you would be using sterling silver wire because it's stronger, it's harder than the copper, which is super soft. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use the copper. So for something like this, I would cut about 3 inches. And we're going to true up the ends by filing them flush with the flat file. A bit, just hammer it flat again. So we want it flush because we're going to be soldering it onto our sheet and we want it to have a good contact. So we'll do both ends. And then we are going to bend it into a U shape. So you could use the hammer or a mandrel to bend your curve. And you're going to decide where exactly you want it to go on your piece. And then you want your ends to come straight down onto your piece so that those flush ends have good contact with the base. And you wouldn't want them too close to the edge because when you have this part, you don't really want that to show on the front. So I think that'll be good for that length. So now we're ready to solder. So we'll go over to the solder area. I guess I should turn the tanks on, I forgot. It like this. We're going to cut it so that we can make our loop and our curved clasp thing on the other side. So you're going to decide which side you want each of them on. Maybe your piece is going to hang this way, so you might want your loop on this side. So decide that before you snip. So I'm just going to leave about this much for my curve, or my loop. And I'll bring this out. I'm just going to hammer this flat. This can help work harden it by hammering. And then you could use a flat plier if this isn't quite straight. So now on this one, I'm going to round off that end first. So for that, I'm going to use the snap-on disc.
So how did they like it there? They bought a house
really
already?
like it. 22 acres with a house.
Oh, wow.
Out in the country, near a river, near the Bay of, in the Bay of Fundy area.
Oh.
Annapolis Valley.
So what are they gonna do? They're gonna farm? Like they're gonna...
They might not do anything. If the house sells, they might just not do anything.
Cruise.
Yeah. I don't think they have any. They're doing some like renos on the house, and then they're gonna build some like workshop and stuff like that. So just rounding off the end here.
So you're gonna go and visit?
Eventually. Maybe end of summer. My mom and dad want to go. And they asked me if I would chaperone them for an all-expense paid trip.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Only if we fly. They were thinking of going on the train by themselves,
Oh.
but flying would be so much easier. So now I just held it with a round nose plier, and I started right from the end, and I just started making my curve. And when you make your curve, you want to leave a little bit of room underneath here for the wire to go in. If it's a little bit wonky, you can straighten it with this flat plier. Pull it straight this way. And the pliers made a little bit of mark, so you could clean that up with the snap-on disc. Okay, so this side, we're going to make a spring. So we're going to hold it with the round nose pliers again, a little bit above the bottom, and we're going to bend backwards over top of the plier and then around. Partway through, I might switch sides of the plier, bring it around. And then we're going to use the flat pliers just to straighten that out a bit. And to just pull it up so your loop is smaller. So once you have it at this stage, you can just fix it up a bit more with your plier, squeeze that in a little bit more. Just the direction it's facing. And we can hammer this more flat again. So you wouldn't want to do yours in copper wire because it's way too soft. Sterling silver will be harder than this. And just straighten that up a bit. So that creates a spring, so when it's in the loop, it pulls back up. So we're gonna see how much extra we have here. We don't want it peeking over the front there, so we're gonna snip it. Gonna snip it back a little bit from the end. And then I'll pull this back up. Like that. And I'm gonna taper this end with a snap-on disc.
So I've got another little car option.
What did he get?
Morris? So I was gonna bring that back too.
Okay, is that the white one? That's what I thought. Okay.
No, you heard that guy died, right? His name was
Yeah,
Mike, the guy out
someone
in
that-
Lumsden or Pence or whatever. Not Lumsden, Pence or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so he bought the car from him.
Oh, recently.
Yes.
Okay. No, I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, that's another vehicle he's got.
So does that actually come to sort of a point when you do that?
Yeah. So you know how a commercial pin would be?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of imitating that, although this is never going to be as pointy or sharp because that's hardened steel. So
Okay.
this would be good for like knits and sweaters and
Oh, yeah.
scarves. You wouldn't want to use it on your fine silk woven blouse.
I never would
Anything like
anyway.
that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that idea, just taper to a point. And then you can use a finer grit sandpaper to make it smoother. And then we could tumble it in this open position so that it has a memory. It work hardens in that position from the tumbler.
Oh.
I guess you haven't used the tumbler
No.
yet. And then that will give it that memory, so it'll be more springy.
You have a tumbler also?
Pardon me?
You have a tumbler also?
Like the magnetic finisher, and we have a tumbler too. But I was thinking the magnetic finisher,
Oh, okay.
but either will work. So I'm just cleaning up the mark from the plier. So then it's basically finished.
Wow.
That's cool.
Any questions about the pin back? Okay. So next we're going to do riveting. So you're going to select your pieces of material that you're going to rivet. So usually it's 2, but it could be even a stack of 3 pieces or whatever. So I'm just going to hammer this flat. should I do here? I think I'll use this one. I'll use that one and this one for now. So you're gonna have your piece finished. Each layer, whether it's patina, printed and patinaed or high polished, or you're gonna have it completely finished, and you're gonna have your holes drilled in it too before you actually rivet it together. So kind of the riveting will be the last step. On your top piece, you're gonna decide where the holes are gonna go first. So on this one, maybe I'll have my holes here, or my rivets here and here. So I am going to use a center punch and just make divots where my holes are gonna be. And then I'm gonna drill a pilot hole through first. So I'm gonna use a small drill bit. I'll just use a 0.7 millimeter drill bit. It's quite a bit smaller than what my rivet's gonna be. So these little ones, just make sure they're in all the way. They're really fragile. And we'll use the drill block and oil. You might want to add oil partway through.
Does this record your voice as well?
Yes. I thought this would be good if people missed demos or just wanted a recap. They could just watch it later on YouTube.
Oh, you're gonna post it on YouTube?
If it turns out good.
Okay.
That's what my intention was, to get all my demos up on YouTube.
And nobody's gonna take your class.
They'll still take it.
Okay.
Don't try this at home
Oh,
with
yeah,
no tools. So let's take
Well,
this.
actually, it's a good review for after, like, for
Yeah.
example, you know, like I've taken this many times, but most times I've just come to work.
Right.
The very first time I took it, I did
Yeah.
it. But after that, it was just Thursday night work class.
Right. So I'm just going to deburr so I don't scratch the piece that I'm going to put it on top of. So just with a larger drill bit, just deburr that.
So are you using wire or two?
Right now,
No, for the
rivet.
rivet.
I haven't decided yet. But I'll
You
do
could
it.
do both.
Probably do two. I'm going to show you all of them. So I'm just establishing where the holes go, the centers of the holes, so that they line up later. Because there's going to be usually 2 or more rivets on your piece. And you want them to all line up. So this just establishes the center of everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to use masking tape and tape that right on. Wherever it's going to go on your other piece. And we're going to drill the rest of the way through.
Okay, now that you're building this up, does your chair not go higher?
No, not really.
Okay. Just saying.
I don't know. I guess if you start feeling awkward, but I still find this is a great.
I find I do a lot of standing when I'm working just because I feel like more in control.
With drilling, I feel like if I'm standing, I'll break the drill bit off. Or my foot won't be on the pedals.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like sewing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
so.
I like to rest my arm like that. I don't know. So at this point, you can either take it all apart, or you can just go all the way through both layers with your final drill bit size. I'll just leave it together. So I'm going to do the tube rivet, which is 1.6 millimeter tube, silver tubing. So I have it here for sale. It's $1.25 for 3 inches. So I know that this is, I know what thickness this is, but I'll show you how to measure with the caliper. So you're going to use the calipers, and you're going to put it in there, and you're going to read the metric side, which is on the top. So have you used the calipers before? Mm-hmm. And do you know how to read them? Okay, so when this is closed, the 0 line is at the 0 line, that's 0. When it opens to the first line, the 0 line on that first line exactly, that's exactly 1 millimeter.
Okay.
If it's on the next line exactly, that will be 2 millimeters. Yeah. But if it's in between somewhere, in between 1 and 2, you're going to be looking at these little numbers and their lines. So only one of these lines is going to line up. So you can see how the 6 line lines up. You see how the 6 line lines up with the line below it?
Yep.
But you see how, say, the 2 line doesn't line up.
Right.
Or the 7.
Right.
So the one that lines up the best out of all those numbers is your decimal point. So it's 1.6 millimeters.
Oh, okay.
So this wire,
Cool.
or tubing, is 1.6 millimeters.
Because it's in between 1 and 2 there, and the 0.6 is there. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
0.6 is,
This 6 line lines up.
oh,
Like the
okay.
2 line doesn't line up, right? So you're going to look at which number lines up the best.
Right,
5 isn't quite on there, but 6 is.
okay.
1.6. So we're going to find a drill bit that's the exact same size. This one is 1.3, so that's too small. And this one is 1.6. So we're measuring the drill bit from the bottom here.
Okay.
That. That's 1.6 as well.
Okay.
So that's one we'll go with. So I'm just going to drill through both holes at the same time. And this is a really dull drill bit. So it must have overheated at some time. I'm just going to use a new one. So if they don't overheat, they'll last forever, or almost forever. I can use the same drill bit at home for like a year. Sometimes. Just use lots of oil. Keep it cool. Re-oil. And the other one, I'm gonna do 16 gauge copper wire on the other rivet. So now I'm gonna take them apart and deburr both sides on each piece. Because that burr that was created can prevent them from laying flat against each other. So just using a larger drill bit, in a clockwise motion, we're gonna get rid of that extra metal. Okay, now we're going to measure how high or how long our rivets are going to be. So we're going to take our calipers and take both sheets of metal and measure that amount. So this is 1.6. Oops, sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, all of that together?
Yeah,
Oh,
1.6. So to that measurement, I'm going to add 1 millimeter.
Okay.
So I'm going to set my caliper to 2.6. And I'm just going to gently tighten this screw here, just till it touches. And I'll just lay it on the table. So this is my tubing material for my tube rivet. I'm going to take a Sharpie. And I'm going to just make sure this one end is flush first before I mark it. So you can just file it straight across.
You're adding 1 millimeter to that 1.6, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that way we'll have a 0.5 millimeter out the front and then a 0.5 millimeter out the back. So once that's level, we're going to just butt it up here. We're just going to mark it like that. See that? Then we're going to take this thing here called a tube holder or a wire jig, or I call it a tube holder. So this opens and then it allows this to come back out or go in. And this area here is where your saw is going to go. So we're going to insert our wire or our tubing. And we're going to have that mark where the saw blade's going to go. We're going to hold it tight. This is for your thumb to hold on to. And then this can set against the end of that and tighten. That way if you have, say, 4 tube rivets in a piece, they're all going to be the same length. Then you can just saw one, take this out, make it flush again, and just slide it back in and saw. So you don't have to re-measure with the calipers each time. And I'm gonna put a new saw blade in this saw here.
Are you doing a lot of sales on Facebook?
Sometimes,
Okay.
or through email or Instagram or whatever. Yeah. A few here and there.
Where do you have your pictures posted then? Where do you post your pictures?
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Oh, you have them on both.
And like I have 2 Facebook pages on my Facebook, and then Google Plus sometimes, LinkedIn sometimes, Twitter.
Are you selling anywhere, like at a Like
I
at
have
the
stuff.
museum or?
I have stuff at the Paper Umbrella,
Oh, okay.
Assiniboia Art Gallery, and the Mackenzie
There
Gift
you
Shop
go. Yeah.
in Regina. And then I have other places in other cities.
And you're on Etsy too, right?
Oh, I have an Etsy store as well. Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm doing a custom ring right now. That was through email for someone in Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've had a few custom ring orders in the States this past year.
That's nice.
Mhm.
Nice.
So here's my little rivet. There it is. And I'm gonna cut one other one out of 16 gauge wire. So we're gonna do a tube rivet and a wire rivet. I was very happy to get into the Reme Modern gift shop. It's that brand new.
Oh, that's that
art
brand new
gallery
one in
in
Saskatoon?
Oh, that's great.
Where is that
They
in
were-
Saskatoon?
Where?
Right along the river somewhere.
Yeah.
Did it used to be the Mendel?
It's, the Mendel was closed for a couple of years as they were building this brand new one.
Oh,
So it's the
yeah.
replacement of the Mendel,
Okay.
but way bigger. It's like an international
Oh, cool.
type of art gallery museum. I don't know if you'd call it a museum, but
Contemporary
yeah.
art, yeah.
Cool.
It was even gotten to the New York Times as one of the top places to visit because
Oh,
of the
wow.
art
Right,
gallery.
yeah.
That's
Wow.
right.
That's cool.
It is. It was 18th on best places to visit. out of
Really?
20.
Wow.
Yeah,
Holy crap.
yeah.
They just opened in October.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a trip planned up there already, but not after the winter's over.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to cut another one with the wire. I may have lost that one.
It went in your drawer.
I'll cut another one. Usually you cut more than one rivet, because sometimes you lose them.
They go for them.
I thought I felt it hit here.
Was it?
Oh.
I heard it hit something.
I thought I heard it hit here.
That's what I thought too. But it's so funny.
What is that tool called that you put the wire into before you saw it?
I call it a tube holder.
A tool holder.
Might be called a wire holder. So when you lift your saw out is a lot of time when it flies somewhere. Okay, I got that one. So once I've cut my rivets, there's going to be a burr left from sawing, if you can see that on there. So I like to remove that first. You could use a sandpaper stick. I like to use this snap-on disc. Just going slow, I just take that edge off as I turn it. I'll do the other side too, even though I already filed it. So now I'll do the same with the tubing. Okay, so here's our 2 rivets. I'll just set this one up here first. So we're gonna set our rivet standing up like that on the block. And we're gonna take our base plate and we're gonna push the rivet through. Like that.
Wow.
And we might do both at the same time. Put the other one in. And then place the top piece on. Like so. And then we're going to push the rivets halfway through. So half the material sticking out the back and half out the front. So you might need to readjust as we go. I'm going to do this one first. This one might fall out as I'm doing this one. First I'm going to use the center punch to flare out that tubing a bit. So let's use the rawhide melt and the center punch. And just a light tap or 2, just a light bit. Then I'm going to recenter it and do the other side. Just flare it out a little. If you flare out one side too much, then it might not be even. Double check. I'll do this side again.
And that's the tubing only.
Yeah, just the tubing. Double check that it's even again. And then, there's only so far you can go with the center punch. So it's flared, it won't come out, but it's not tight. So I'm going to use the round-headed hammer. So we're going to, once again, double check that it's level, or even, sticking out evenly on each side. We're going to use the round-headed hammer, and we're just going to go around the rim. You're going to go straight on, and I like to just let the hammer weight. The hammer has that weight to it that does the job for you. Just do a bit on this side, double check that it's still centered, and then flip it over. And go back and forth. You want to continue till you can't feel a sharp or an edge that's kind of catching your finger. So you can see how you don't want too much extra material. That 1 millimeter was plenty. You wouldn't want any more than that, or it will get kind of messy, too much to kind of push over nicely. You could even get away with slightly less than that 0.5 millimeter on each side. So you can feel that one, just be careful this one doesn't fall out.
Wow, that's neat. I had no idea what a rivet was.
So this wire one can be finished the same way using that round-headed hammer, or we could use the flat-headed hammer. I'll show you this one. The reason for that might be if you had a pin back. So if you're going to do a combination of the pin back riveting as a project, maybe you're going to have some stuff riveted on. I would do all my soldering first and then do the riveting last, so there's less material to heat up while you're soldering. So if this had, but I would prepare all my holes and everything first,
Okay.
then solder that on, finish it all up, you know, your surface and everything, and have your other pieces finished, however they're gonna be, and then rivet it. But have it all designed ahead of time.
How do you rivet when you've got the pin attached to the back?
Well, then you're gonna make sure that your holes, good question. You're gonna make sure your rivets aren't too close to here. So maybe there'll be kind of here,
Okay.
you
Well,
know?
when you're hammering, I could see how you
That's
can-
where this comes in. With the round-headed hammer, you wouldn't be able to get any closer than about here with your rivet.
Yeah.
But if you had one closer, then this is where you can use this hammer. Get right close. But yeah, be careful not to get too close so that you don't run into that
I
problem.
meant about how do you hammer the other side?
Oh, you could just have it hanging through something.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Somehow or other, figure that out. Yeah.
2 blocks side by side.
So, with this hammer, once again, we're just gonna make sure it's even. And this will spread it out too, but kind of like a crosshatch kind of effect. So just go that way a bit, and then we'll just go perpendicular. Just to mushroom it out a little. Then we're gonna go the other side, just adjusting again. So it already seemed to mushroom too much to go back.
We can do one side.
I guess so. See if we can get it with the rawhide here. So yeah, I went a little too far at the beginning, but I got a little bit sticking out here. Just keep on moving back and forth.
What are you hammering on?
The wire rivet.
Oh, okay.
So you'll keep going till it's not sharp when you run your finger across. So I'm kind of working on the lip now with the corner of the hammer here. So a little more material on this side than I wanted to work with, but
Here's where you do the sleight of hand and put this one.
so yeah, these two styles of rivets will be supposed to look the same on each side. So there's no front or back of them. If you look at this better sample here,
Oh, with the wire.
they'll be the same on both sides,
Right.
the tubing and the wire.
Okay.
So because your pieces are already at their final stage, whether they're high polished or textured or whatever, you want to protect your work. So you might want to take small pieces of tape.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering about that, because that one got all marked up with the
Yeah.
area.
So, especially for scuffing, you want to just protect your work around the rivets. And maybe on both sides too, because even just sitting on the block here, it can rub like this and affect things. So you can just use masking tape. If you wanted a rivet, a single rivet that had movement, you could take a really small piece of metal, like a 28 gauge or a 30 gauge little piece. You can roll it through the rolling mill, and then you can just kind of have it, maybe 2 pieces on each side, kind of in between, rivet, and then pull those pieces of metal out. They would be just a spacer so that it's loose and then it can move. If you wanted something to articulate.
But you just put paper between this one or
I've
something?
tried paper, and sometimes the paper gets stuck
Okay.
in there, and then it's, yeah.
So how do you space that in?
So you could take a sheet of scrap, you could roll it through the rolling mill, so it's super thin.
Thin, okay.
Like really thin, 0.3 or something,
Okay.
like paper thin almost. And then you could just have 2 strips on either side of a rivet, just as a spacer while you're riveting, and then it gives you that movement. If you want something like that. Okay, so I'll do 2 more. So I'm going to do the nail rivet. So I have these eustachian pins. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I don't know. I know you get them at Home Depot.
Home Depot in the picture framing section.
All right.
Make sure they're solid brass and not brass plated.
Oh, I don't have those yet.
So these are nice, the rivets. I don't know if that's the same one over there. And,
Those are solid brass nails.
yeah, solid brass. From Home Depot. I'm just going to cut this in half.
What are you working on? On your
A
station?
ring. I want to do another square ring. I have a friend who wants one. So, but what I realized is I have to do the pattern first. I just realized just now,
Oh, before I roll it.
because I need to have it a certain size. So I'm gonna have to hammer, but I'll do that after she's finished.
So with these last 2 examples, you don't have to measure the thickness of your 2 pieces. So we're going to do a hole through these. So I'm just guessing where the centers are. Do single hole ones, so I'm not going to bother with a pilot hole. Just going to do the hole through both pieces. So the nail, the brass nail, we're going to measure that. And that is 1.3. So we're going to use a 1.3 millimeter drill bit, which is this one. And my other one, I'm going to do balled up wire. I will show you how to do this in a few minutes. And we're going to use 1.3 for that as well.
What is that called?
Balled up wire.
Okay.
So I just used regular wire and balled it up with the torch. And I'll show you that. So we'll do our holes. Hopefully this one is sharp. I'm going to use a brand new one instead.
the wire was the same size or it was 1.6?
This wire, that other wire was, but I have 16 gauge and 14 gauge wire here, so.
Oh, I see.
I'm gonna use 16 gauge for this one,
And that's 1.6?
1.3.
1.3?
14 gauge is 1.6.
And you measured
The nail
not
is,
not the nail head, but the nail itself.
yeah,
Okay.
and that was 1.3 as well. Even though on the package, it says 18 gauge. They're lying.
I'm sure a man put that on there.
So I'm gonna drill all 4 holes.
So do you prefer the oil over the wax?
Yes, I feel like the wax doesn't stick
Oh,
to the drill bit. I don't know. Do you like the wax? Like there's Burlife,
yeah.
but I've never used that kind of wax for drilling ever. But I don't know if it sticks. I haven't thought of that. Burlife is kind of like a wax, but I still prefer the oil to that Burlife. It's like 3-in-1. It's regular 3-in-1. Probably get it Canadian Tire. So we're gonna deburr all these holes. So with a larger drill bit. Okay. So I'm going to insert the nail from the top piece, and I'm going to insert it through the back piece, and we have that much sticking out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our snips, and they have a bevel on there, so when they cut, they don't cut right flush with the bottom, they cut up slightly, just enough for riveting purposes. So watch your eyes. And yeah, there's just a little bit left there. And because the nail head's flat anyway, you can do this one on the block. So you can either use the round-headed hammer or the flat-headed hammer. It's up to you. I'll do the flat one again. Let's go across, and then I just haven't used this one much. Just keep churning it. So I'm just using this part of the hammer so I can see. Over here I wouldn't be able to see. I'm not really tilting it, I'm just kind of using that part of it. More straight on. And just double check how it feels. I feel a little bit of an edge still. So sometimes I just go lightly at the very edge. My hammer will be tilted a bit then. So this rivet would have a front and a back. But I think they look quite nice.
Oh, yeah.
And this last one here is a balled up piece of wire, 16 gauge. I'm just gonna snip a bit off here. And I'm gonna taper the end with a snap-on disc. So it's just a needle in a vise, a vise with a handle.
And what would you use it for?
I use it all the time. Scribing,
Oh,
picking
okay.
things out of things, different things like that. So just taper it a bit like this. And then we are going to put it through. These look really nice if you buffed them first, or even just put them in the magnetic finisher first. They're really nice and shiny. Just gonna insert it through the top, and through the back here. And then we're gonna snip it the same, but we're gonna use this tool in the vise. So this tool is concave, so when you're hammering, it's gonna retain its roundness, it won't flatten. If you did it on the block, then you would have a flat area.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna do it in the vise over there. One last thing to discuss before I do balled up wire is there's also these nuts and bolts available from Reactive Metals. And maybe Rio has them now too, I'm not sure. So they're little nuts and bolts. They come in sets of 10. And they have different styles of heads. These ones are hex. They come with a washer, a bolt, and a nut. And
You could get
they
them
look
maybe
like that.
from the optometrist or something, like
Maybe.
they're almost eyeglasses.
Sometimes the eyeglasses don't have the nut part.
Yeah,
though.
that's true.
And then you get the wrenches that would match whatever you order. So this one would involve 2 of these hex wrenches. And so you can take them apart and put them back together. So they just unscrew. And if it's too long, you could always sand or saw off the end.
Right.
I'll grab the catalog to show you in a few minutes. There's 2 different sizes. These are the 0090, and then there's a size that's slightly bigger, I think. And then they have gold plated or black or silver plated or yeah. So those are cool too.
Yeah.
hmm And you could use eyeglass screws for the ones that have a screw head on them. Pretty cool. So I will just show you how to ball up wire, and then you guys can maybe get started on some samples. There's a whole box of scrap metal in there if you wanted to just do some wire rivets or tube rivets or whatever.